Well, here we are again. I've made some videos over the past year or two here on the channel about developing film yourself at home, but I've so far yet to touch on one of the main processes, E6 developing. E6 is the chemical process for developing color reversal film, or sometimes more commonly referred to as color slide film. Color reversal film is film that, when developed properly, will come out of the chemical process as a positive, meaning you can look at the images on the film directly and you can even mount and project them, which is a great way to enjoy the pictures that you've taken. In comparison, of course, a color negative or black and white negative film comes out as a negative version of the image that you captured. From a negative, you can print or scan to get your inverted final image. Color reversal film is expensive. In fact, it's some of the more expensive stuff you can choose to shoot. And there's also not that many options out there for color reversal film to still shoot even if you want to. Fuji has Provia and Velvia, but there's no telling how long that's going to be around because it's hard to get at the moment anyways. And Kodak makes Ektachrome, and then that's about it in terms of currently produced professional quality slide film. Sometimes you see something like Retrochrome from the film photography project show up, but oddities like that are usually just things like old Agfa slide film or old Ektachrome that's been kicking around. Finding labs that develop reversal film can be difficult, and this is largely because not a ton of people are shooting color reversal film, so it's expensive for a lab to offer that service. But luckily, there are lots of chemical kits out there that you can get even if you're a beginner so that you can do this process entirely yourself at home. The E6 process stands for Eastman 6 because Kodak created it, and it's meant to be a 6-step chemical process. Like all film, color reversal film is made up of many minuscule layers coated onto a base material. These different layers are sensitive to different colors of light. I say this in every film developing video that I've made, but film is light sensitive, which means that a portion of developing has to be done in complete darkness. And if you don't do that, then your film will be exposed to light and irreversibly ruined. Just something to keep in mind. The E6 process starts with a first developer, which converts the silver halide crystals on the film into metallic silver and creates a negative of the image that we captured. This is followed by a reversal bath chemical, which essentially re-exposes the film to light without actually having to pull it out of the tank and do a physical re-exposure like you would have to do in a black and white reversal process. This activates any remaining silver halide crystals on the film that weren't developed in the first step. After this is a color developer, which interacts with the newly exposed silver and activates the color dyes and color couplers on the film. Then there's a pre-bleach chemical, which prepares the film for the actual bleach step. The bleach interacts with the metallic silver on the film from the first and color developer so that it can be removed in the final step of the process, which is the fix. That is a super basic explanation as to how color reversal developing works. It shares a few similarities with black and white reversal developing, but they're also very, very different processes. You cannot use color reversal chemicals in order to develop black and white film as a positive. They're just not interchangeable like that. I've done a video about black and white reversal developing before, which you can check out, but it is a little difficult to do sometimes, and it's also not the easiest thing to get a kit for, depending on where you are. The reality, though, is that you probably don't even need to understand the entire 6-bath process for color reversal developing anyways, because most of the chemical kits out there for doing slide developing at home are 3-bath kits. In the E6 3-bath process, several of the steps are combined to make it easier to do at home. Instead of having separate reversal bath and color developer steps, the 3-bath kit combines that into one chemical. And instead of having individual baths for pre-bleach, bleach, and fix, those are also combined into a single Blix step. This means the process you'll likely be doing yourself is a first developer, a reversal and color developer bath, and then the Blix. There's a lot of debate around 6-bath versus 3-bath for color reversal developing, and I'm not gonna try and dig into it in this video because it doesn't really matter, because a lot of people are never really gonna do 6-bath developing because it's not as easier to get for a kit. But usually a 6-bath developing is more consistent and gives better results. 3-bath is easy to do, it makes sense if you're doing it at home, and it's great to kind of learn and explore and develop this stuff yourself. but 6 bath is usually like the better way to go if you have that option. And just combining things like bleach and fix into Blix isn't as great as just doing them as 2 individual steps. And that also applies to C41 kits out there as well, because many of those use Blix instead of bleach and fix. Again, not a huge deal on like the amateur and hobbyist side of things, because you can still get great looking results using a 3 bath kit. You can get E6 kits from Tetanol, Unicolor, Arista, CINESTILL, Bellini. There's probably some others out there that I didn't mention, but most of the kits you get are going to be 3 bath ones. The Bellini kit is a 6 bath one, and there used to be the Fuji Hunt kit that was 6 bath as well, but I don't believe that one's around anymore. For this video, I'm going to be using the CINESTILL chemicals, and I wouldn't say that CINESTILL are necessarily the best for chemicals. In fact, I wouldn't say that CINESTILL are necessarily the best for anything, but they are some of the most easily available chemical kits that I can get for myself here in Toronto at the moment. The CINESTILL kit works like this. You buy everything individually. So there's the CR6 Color and Reversal 2-in-1 slide solution, which you have to buy. And then you also have to buy the BF6 Bleaches and Fixer 3-in-1 slide solution. And these are the second and third steps of the process. And you also have to buy one of 3 possible first developers that they offer. There's Daylight Chrome, which is for daylight balanced slide film, which is currently all produced slide film. So that's the one I probably recommend. There's Tungsten Chrome, which is for tungsten balanced slide film, which no one makes anymore. You can also just use it on daylight balanced reversal film and you get very blue results if you want. And there's Dynamic Chrome, which claims to be the most flexible option and allows for greater dynamic range of reversal film developing. It can give different results based on the dilution and the times that you use while developing. I bought Daylight Chrome as my first developer because I figured that would give me the most standard results using daylight balanced color reversal film. The Dynamic Chrome stuff sounds interesting, but I've also read some less than stellar reviews for it. So if people have used this stuff or any of the other kits, then I'm interested in your experiences, so please comment down below. The first developer is said to be good for 8 to 16 rolls of 35mm, while the other chemicals are good for longer. So because you can buy these things individually, you can just buy more first developer once it's exhausted to keep using the rest of the chemicals. Okay, I'm just gonna power through like loading Patterson tanks and things you need for home developing because I've already done it in like 3 or 4 previous videos at this point already, so you can check those out, which I definitely recommend, because if color reversal is your first experience developing film at home, that's fine, I guess, but I always really recommend just starting with black and white negative because there is so much more flexibility and more options, and it's also just so easy once you learn it. So go watch either the black and white negative developing video or the C41 developing video because they explain certain things a little bit more in depth than I'm going to do here. All right, let's rock and roll. I use Patterson film tanks with these plastic reels for developing my film, and the film needs to be loaded into these tanks in absolute darkness. As I've mentioned in previous videos, you have to load film into developing tanks in complete darkness. You can't do it in a dark room with a red light on. The red light is only for use sometimes when you're handling certain types of black and white film, orthochromatic, or if you're doing a black and white printing process, because black and white photo paper lacks red sensitivity, or at least has such a low sensitivity that you can use the red light, but color film has red sensitivity. A big part of color developing is consistent temperature of your chemicals, and the kit that you buy will detail this in the instructions. So just absolutely read the instructions of the chemical kit that you buy. Color chemicals need to be pretty warm to properly activate the dyes and couplers in the film. Incorrect temperature can lead to color shifts and overall poor results. So for temperature control and color developing, I recommend using a heater of some sort. I personally use this little water bath from Flick Film here in Canada. I adore it. I absolutely adore it. It's so useful. It's so consistent. Love it. You can also look at getting a sous vide cooker or the CINESTILL temperature unit, which is just an overpriced sous vide cooker. Regardless, you need some way of keeping that at a consistent temperature. Along with all that stuff, you're gonna want tanks, beakers, containers, yada, yada, yada. You probably already know, and if you don't, then go watch the C41 video. I'll go through the process, but I'm doing it pretty much exactly as it's detailed in the instructions that come with the kit in terms of mixing the chemicals and developing the film. To mix my chemicals, I've got some water at the temperature the instructions say to mix at, which is around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've got my chemical kits, so my first developer, color and reversal bath, and the bleaches and fixer bath, along with some containers and measuring beakers, gloves, funnels, thermometers, and some plastic straws I'll use for mixing because I'm cheap and I don't actually have like a mixing stick for developing. For mixing my chemicals, I use jugs of distilled water because here in Toronto, we have very hard water and I've had best results with chemicals I mix with distilled water. I'm just doing everything for the mixing and developing exactly as the instructions with this kit detail. For the first developer, I measure out 470 milliliters of water at the temperature of 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I add the entire bottle of first developer into the water while also stirring the entire time to mix the water and developer together properly. Then I top off the solution with enough water to hit the 1 liter line, mix in some more and pour it into a container, shake it for good luck, and then I label the container because I'm not an idiot and I want to remember the proper chemicals that are in the containers. Mixing each chemical is the same basic process. For the second chemical, which is the color and reversal bath, the kit is a part A and part B. These are also labeled as 2 and 3 on the bottles, and that's in reference to the overall process, so the second and third bottles that you're using as your mixing stuff. Measure out 650 milliliters of water and then add part A while stirring. Next, add part B while you continue to stir the solution. This stuff will turn a dark bluish purple. Add enough water to hit the 1 liter line again, and then into the container it goes. The bleaches and fixer kit is in 3 parts. Part A, which is step 4 overall, part B, which is step 5, and part C, which is step 6. Measure out 414 milliliters of water, add the 3 parts while stirring, throw it into a container, label it. Now I've got all 3 chemicals for my 3-bath E6 process. I've got several rolls of Velvia 50 to develop first, and I've also got a short 12 exposure roll of fresh Ektachrome, and there's an older roll of Fuji Astia slide film which is discontinued. The Velvia 50 is several years expired, so I don't expect perfect results from it. While I load my rolls into the Patterson tanks in total darkness, the chemical containers are going to hang out in my water bath so that they can achieve a temperature of 104 degrees Fahrenheit as per the instructions. With my rolls loaded into the tank, I can begin developing. First, I'm just doing a warm tap water rinse to bring the temperature of the film in the tank closer to the warm temperature of the chemicals. I do this for about a minute and then just pour it back out. With the first developer at 104 degrees Fahrenheit, it goes into the Patterson tank and the process begins. The first developer goes for 6 minutes and I slowly agitate the tank for 15 seconds every 30 seconds. Nice slow movements of the tank while also rotating helps to ensure even chemical distribution across the film, and then tap it down at the end to free any air bubbles. I'm also going to remove the other 2 chemicals from the water bath because right now they're 104 degrees Fahrenheit and they only need to be between 80 and 104 degrees, so if it's slightly cooler than 104, that's okay. At the end of the 6 minutes, my first developer gets poured out and back into the container for future use. Then I'll do a series of rinses with just tap water of about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. For this, I just fill and empty the tank 6 times with water. The next steps are the same with just the next chemical in the process. So the color and reversal bath also goes for 6 minutes with 15-second agitations every 30 seconds. At the end of this step, I repeat the same rinse of filling and emptying the tank 6 times. And the final chemical step, the bleach and fixer bath, will also run for 6 minutes, but if you let it go for a few minutes longer, that's okay as well. The instructions say to let it run for 6 to 10 minutes with the same series of agitations as the previous steps. So really doing any film developing is just paying attention to the temperatures and the times of the chemicals and just following the instructions and making sure you're doing everything in the right order. At the end of this step, I do the final series of rinses, and I'll also do a couple of rinses with distilled water so that my film dries without spots. The film can be safely removed from the tank and hung to dry, and that's the CINESTILL E6 kit. My results with this kit have been somewhat disappointing, actually. Yes, my Velvia 50 is expired, but every roll that I developed is very dark and at times very blue, and I don't believe that this is entirely the film's fault. There's some beautiful results to be had though, and this roll of images I took back in the winter when Toronto was hit with a huge snowfall are the best for sure. But some images are so dark that they're hard to get a good scan from at all. This short roll of Ektachrome is fresh. It's cut from a large motion picture roll of Ektachrome, and it's far darker than it definitely should be in comparison to slide film that I've had developed by E6 here in Toronto through Downtown Camera. These slides are much brighter, and you don't need a strong light source to be able to just kind of hold them up to like a window and look at them. The density is very, very good on this stuff, versus the stuff that I've been developing with the CINESTILL kit, which is far too dense. In the same tank as the Ektachrome that came out very dark was also an expired roll of Fuji Astia, which actually came out pretty good in terms of density. The colors aren't perfect on this, but it's several years old at this point, so I expected that. It's the inconsistency between this and the Ektachrome and the Velvia 50 that I developed that I don't like. I followed all of the instructions of the CINESTILL kit exactly as listed, but I'm not particularly impressed with what I'm seeing here, and if I'm going to be doing more of this developing in the future, then it will not be with the CINESTILL chemicals again. Some of these project okay though, at least, which I'm happy about because that's really a big reason of why I personally will shoot with reversal film. There's nothing quite like putting slides through a projector and seeing them blown up in front of you. And there's a ton of detail that you can see even on some of these darker slides. When I'm struggling to get good scans off of some of this stuff, they're projecting really well at least. I fucking love slide film, okay? It's expensive, it's not easy to get slide mounts anymore, it's not easy to get replacement slide projector bulbs anymore, but sweet Jesus, if good slide film doesn't look fantastic when you project it. Reversal film is saturated and contrasty, and that's really what you should expect to see when you're pulling it out of that development tank. Sometimes with this film, more so than color or black and white negative, if you're getting poor results, it might not be a developing issue, it might just be a poor exposure. Reversal isn't super flexible sometimes. CINESTILL's kit claims to have improved flexibility, but I wouldn't rely on that over just a good exposure in the first place. You can also push or pull color reversal film just as you would with other film types during their respective developing processes, and you do this by increasing or decreasing your developing times or adjusting your temperatures of the chemicals. Again, color reversal film is more limited, so the results of this might be hit or miss. Increased saturation, increased contrast, color shifts, some unpredictable characteristics. These are different things that you might encounter as you're pushing slide film to its limits. Also worth mentioning is that this E6 process is entirely different from older slide film processes. Things like Kodachrome's K14 process involved 14 chemicals, and older Ektachrome used processes like E3 and E4. They're not compatible with E6, so just don't waste your chemicals. Overall, using a slide film kit, much like using a C41 kit, isn't that difficult. Just follow the instructions of whatever kit you happen to buy and you'll probably be just fine. There's a ton of resources online for developing, whether it's C41 or black and white or color reversal like this stuff. So I can't go through troubleshooting every aspect of everything because in a development process like this, there's a lot of steps and different things will impact your final result. Having developed images like this in the E6 process that are very dark is usually the result of something in the first developer. Whether it's not the correct temperature or the correct time, it can impact the density of the final image. That being said, I followed everything exactly as it's detailed in the CINESTILL instructions for this kit. So I would expect this to have been more consistent and look the way that I expect slide film to look, having seen a lot of developed rolls over the years. I do wish there was a stabilizer included in this kit for the final rinse. It's not entirely necessary, but a stabilizer can help with how well your developed film holds up over time. A normal E6 process will have a stabilizer chemical at the very end, which helps in the long term to prevent fading and damage, but many kits, and C41 kits as well, sometimes don't include a stabilizer. I'm really happy with some of these images that I've developed though, and I'm interested to hear about your experience with different kits besides the CINESTILL one as I mentioned. It is a lot of fun to open up the tank, pull that film out, and see these developed images right there on the actual film, and all you have to do is hold them up to the light and they're there and they're just like super vibrant and saturated and contrasty, and it's wonderful. If you're feeling crazy, you can also develop regular color negative film in E6 chemicals. I'm not gonna do it, but you could do it if you want to. It's not gonna be perfect or even good necessarily, but it's something you can explore. Just crazy contrast and color shifts and kind of unpredictable results is what you'll encounter if you go that route. So cost-wise, I want to do a bit of a breakdown against this versus the lab. It's not the easiest thing to do because there's so many different factors and people in different places might have access to E6 labs that do it super cheap somehow. people might not have access to developing through a lab for E6. Some people might have to mail their film away. There's just a lot of factors. But let me tell you what I pay these days for E6 developing at a lab. And I take my stuff to Downtown Camera, but they don't do it in-house. They have somebody also within Toronto that they send it out to. These prices are also in Canadian dollars, and you can do the exchange yourself. Right now, I pay $14.50 for developing one roll of 35mm slide film, and that's just for developing with no scans. If I want just regular lab scans, I pay $6.50 on top of that. God damn, that's what I pay for color reversal processing? I can't keep doing this. Also, like right now, it's $20 or $30 for a 35mm fresh roll of slide film, and it's rarely even in stock for the Fuji stuff. Oh my God. That's a terrible price. I paid about $80 for the entire CINESTILL kit, and that can develop, at least just with this one go, between 8 and 16 rolls of 35mm film. So yeah, good amount of savings there. That of course isn't valuing the time that it takes to develop the actual film myself and scan it myself. So it's really hard to just kind of do a strictly by the numbers look at the cost breakdown for this stuff. And again, so many different people pay so many different amounts for film developing at home and what's involved and like what they need to get to do it. I think I would rather develop color reversal film at home in comparison to color negative film, because that stuff I usually am just fine to take to a lab. I'd usually rather have negative film scanned by a lab when it comes to color. But for E6, it's very satisfying, and also for a lot of people, they just don't necessarily have a lab nearby that is able to offer color reversal processing. You can also use this kit for 120 medium format, large format sheet film, 4x5, 8x10, Super 8, 16mm Ektachrome. The E6 chemicals are good for any of those types of films across any of those formats. So it's not just like 35, even though that's all I showed off in this video. Yeah, so that is color reversal film and developing. Listen, I started this channel in October of 2018, and it's now October or November of 2022, I guess, right? Depending on when this video goes up. So it's been a bit. And when I started, even though that was not that long ago, but let's face it, 2018 feels like a fucking eternity ago at this point. Film was cheaper. It was not that long ago, but film it was cheaper. So was food and gas, and so it's harder and harder at this point to recommend some of this to beginners and people who are interested in it and just like really want to learn how to do it, because it gets expensive really quickly and it's a little hard to get into, and it's hard to get fresh film sometimes at this point. But developing film is a really great experience if you are interested in this stuff, because it does give you an opportunity to learn more about the medium of film, of what it is, of how it works, of mistakes that can be made, of successes and the results to be had from it. So I think that as time goes on, it makes more and more sense to try and get into this side of shooting film, even if it's just to like save money. Of course, it depends on who you are and where you are. The film community is worldwide, and because I live in Toronto, Canada, North America, I have a lot of privilege, a lot of access, and a lot of resources that a lot of other people just do not have in this community. People who are just as passionate, if not drastically more so than me. So I hope that no matter where you are, you have a chance to explore some of this for yourself. Black and white, color, slide film, whatever. It all allows for such a massive amount of creativity. Thank you so much for checking this out wherever it is that you happen to be watching this video from. I will throw links in the description down below for some of the resources in relation to developing color reversal film, some of the stuff I mentioned in this video. There's also links for ways to support the channel if that's something that you're interested in or have the ability to do, then you can go check that out in the description below as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all soon.